All right. Yeah, definitely some East Coast people. You know, it's funny. I'm from Maryland, and I get a ton of people calling from Maryland and like the DC, Maryland, Virginia area, which I just like was very surprised about.
Yeah, it's funny. It
That there's
always
so many people
surprises
there.
me where, people in Kentucky, people in Idaho, like just, it's a big world we live in.
Yeah, yeah. Let me try this. Let me see if I can do the Facebook Live thing like you were saying. Just, let's just go for it real quick and see if it works. All right. Seems pretty easy.
Cool.
It's preparing the stream. Should
we get into it?
Let's get into it. It looks like it's just loading up right now, and I'm gonna hit this live button.
Okay.
See if this works. Oh yeah, look at that. All right, I'm just gonna hit go live and see. Cool. All right, so just to give you guys a little bit of context, and please, by the way, if you guys can't, okay, I think we're good. We're live now. If you guys can't hear me or if there's any issues with the audio, please let me know and we can make some modifications to that. Sometimes there'll be some technical things like that. You guys saw Fund Your Clothing Line, right? That was a big, let's see, that was the theme of what we're talking about today. And I have had hundreds and hundreds of conversations from fashion designers that come to me, and they all are very product focused. But one of the biggest things that they're nervous about and scared about is the funding, right? Whether you're just launching with very limited budget, or you have the money, but you're trying to figure out the right way to leverage that. And we want to get into the nitty gritty today. And we're talking with Shannon Lohr. She's the founder of Factory 45, which you can explain a little bit more, but they're an online accelerated program for entrepreneurs to basically launch their brands effectively. Is that right?
Sure, yeah. Take them from idea to launch.
Okay. So one of the first things that I wanted to talk to you about, Shannon, was when we're talking about how to raise money, right? There's a lot of different ways to do that, right? You might think, all right, well, does that mean I go to venture firms or find an investor? What is the way that you raise money? How do we raise money?
So you can raise money a bunch of different ways depending on where you're at in the process. I work with idea stage people, really people who, they may have dabbled a little bit. Maybe they've sourced some fabric, maybe they have a prototype, maybe they've started talking to production partners, but really they haven't launched anything yet. They don't have anything to show for it. And so that's what I'm going to talk about today, is more for those idea stage people. If you already have money in the bank and you're ready to go and you don't need to raise money, that's awesome. You can stick around, but it probably won't be as applicable to you. My favorite way of raising money for idea stage people, again, you don't have a product really to show for yourself, you haven't sold anything, is through crowdfunding. Because there's so much less risk. You don't have to use your own savings to invest, $20,000 into launching your line. You can essentially have your customers finance your first production run for you. And I'll pause there because we'll get into the details, but that's essentially what it is. It's a pre-sales method of selling. It's not donation. It's not a fundraiser. It's not people just pledging to you. You are pre-selling your product and having customers pay for it before they have it in their hands, and then delivering it to them after you do your first production run.
Got it. Okay. You're really leveraging the community. Interesting. Yes. Okay. So before we get into that, I want to take a step back because I really want to start a little bit earlier in your journey. And just to give you guys some context, the reason that I learned about Shannon is that one of her students or past students was talking to me about how they launched a really successful Kickstarter, and they were so thrilled at the process and all of the support that they got from you as a teacher. could you bring us back to the beginning? Because you went through this. You went through the launch of a product of your own. Can you tell us a little bit about what you were working on?
Yeah, so I believe the student was Colleen, who you were talking to.
Yeah.
Sorry. And so she launched Untucked Workwear, which is apparel for working women. And she's awesome. She did do a Kickstarter campaign, blew it out of the water. It was a great success story. And so basically she came through my program, Factory 45, which is a 6-month online accelerator program, like you mentioned. And Factory 45 is the program I created for myself. Like when I was starting out back in 2010, launching my own clothing company, it's the program that I would have wanted and would have saved me a year and a half of, mistakes and dead ends and just, a mess. So basically what happened is my co-founder and I launched a clothing company on Kickstarter in 2011. Again, this was a year and a half after trying to find a manufacturer to work with us, trying to find materials that fit our sustainability guidelines, because that was important to us. And we ended up launching the highest funded fashion project in Kickstarter history at that time. Since then, that was 2011. Since then, it's been surpassed. But we were featured in the New York Times, Forbes. It was this, huge blown up success story. We ended up quadrupling our first production run. And through that experience, I acquired all these skills and resources and realized I wanted it to be easier for people to launch fashion projects in a way that didn't, drain their savings and just leave them totally frustrated. Right.
Was it kind of like an aha moment that you had through that process where you realized whoa, this is the path forward? Did anything like that hit you when you were, it sounds like you spent a good amount of time beforehand doing what a lot of these designers are doing, which is putting in the hard work to build a product.
Sure.
Right.
Yeah.
And then at what point did you kind of realize that the community building was the path forward? I mean, how did you kind of get to that aha moment at all?
So that was pretty serendipitous, haphazardly. I mentioned to my co-founder, this was back when blogging was just really getting onto the scene in a way that people were actually making money off their blogs and building communities. I think Tim Ferriss had written his first book about it. It was just this whole thing. Right. And so I said, why don't we start a blog? Because we don't have a product to sell yet. But what we can do is start documenting and writing and telling people about our journey, what we're going through, the challenges we're running into, our design process. We can have them offer their input on certain designs. And now we call that content marketing, and it's, this whole big thing. But back then it really wasn't. It wasn't something people were doing. So the blog was great because it kept us accountable. And it really, when we would hit a botched sample that didn't look anything like our design, we could tell our audience about it and we could just take them through the process. And what happened was that built community. That built a loyal following of people who were cheering us on and rooting for us and waiting for us to launch. And when we did finally launch and had a product to sell, they were just clamoring to buy it. They were ready to support us and buy our product, which was awesome.
Got it. Okay. So I want to dig into that a little bit because I think people conceptually get that. They get that they should be putting out content, and a lot of the designers that I talk to, they're I am communicating and I'm trying to build a following, but there's a difference between just posting pictures here and there and really, really engaging. So what are some of the things that you guys did tactically in the beginning to start to build that?
Right. So now, back then there was no Instagram. So really it was through the blog and through our email list and through Facebook. Facebook was awesome because everyone saw every post. It wasn't like these algorithms now where, a fraction of your audience sees things. So that was really helpful. But now, it would have been awesome to have Instagram back then because of that being an avenue for designers to consistently find followers and communicate and put out content that's going to attract those followers. But I think the most important thing, even taking a step back from what avenue do you use, it's really about finding and knowing who your ideal target market is. Who is your ideal customer avatar and being really clear on who that person is so that you're creating content that will appeal to that person and not trying to appeal to everyone. I always tell my entrepreneurs, if you're trying to appeal to everyone, you're appealing to no one. So really getting specific on who your audience is so that you can create content around that person that's going to provide value to them.
So who was your audience for the line that you launched or the product you launched?
Yeah, it was a traveler around in her mid to late 20s. She also was an aspiring minimalist, and it was a woman.
Okay, so you have this persona in mind, right?
Mm-hmm.
Besides opening up and starting to document your process, right, which I think is really great, and I recommend doing as much video as possible to really showcase what's happening around you. How do you find that woman? You know, like maybe you're that woman, and a lot of these people are their own target demos, but how do you find those people?
Yeah, so in terms of finding them, like finding out who they are or finding out where they are?
So I think I would be willing to say that a large majority of these folks, they know kind of what their target is, but they're having trouble connecting to them. So what are some of the things that you're doing? I think we can tackle both questions, but what are some of the things that you would do to actually find them? You know, obviously, maybe you have like friends in that circle, but the internet is vast.
Yeah.
And so could you give us some advice on how you reach those, maybe somebody that match that demographic on the other side of the country?
Yeah. So, I mean, really, it's a little bit different now. Like, it's kind of easier now than it was when we were doing it. I mean, we were hitting the pavement. We went on like a sustainable fashion tour, and we're talking to people on the street. Like, it was very grassroots, you know, boots on the ground. And there is value in that. There is value in getting out there and getting face-to-face time with who you think might be your ideal customer. And that could be through events. That could be just through like, going into a store that sells the product you want to sell and just talking to people who, are in that store. But really now, you have hashtags, you have the Instagram network, the Facebook network, on Twitter, like we have all these social media avenues where if you put in the work, people will out and they will start to show interest in you, and then you have to engage them in conversation. And I always say, even if one person opts into your email list or one person follows you, engage with that person, send them a message, comment on their whatever they've posted, blog, whatever, and don't diminish the value of one person at a time, because that's how it started for us. It started with our moms being the only people reading our blog, to with every new subscriber, every new person who emailed us saying, that was so helpful. Thank you so much for writing about this. Or, oh my gosh, I'm so excited about what you guys are creating. Engaging in that dialogue is so important. And that's how you build it up.
What are some of the things that they would say to you in terms of feedback, like that got them most excited, that caused them to reach out and say something? That's interesting.
Usually it was like when something went badly. So there was this one time where we were so excited. We had a design. We worked with a sample and pattern maker to create the prototype for that first design. We were doing this by mail. Actually, it was a man. He sent the sample back to us. It looked nothing like our design. We had designed a maxi dress, which is a full-length dress. It was above the knee. Like we said, it was going to be a scoop neck, and it was a V-neck. Like everything was different. And we documented that. And I'm sure there are people watching right now who can totally, relate to that, who've had, bad samples happen, which it does. But we wrote about that, and we had pictures, and we just told them, this is holding things up for our launch, you guys. And, we just want to keep you in on the process because we value you, and we hope you'll stick around and support us. And it was those types of things that we would just, get inundated with. Oh, we're cheering you on. We can't wait.
So at this point, is this communication to people that have already pre-ordered or something, or is it more people following the process really even in the early stages?
Early stage. And
wow.
like I said, we were blogging for 1.5 years before we had anything to sell. So we were taking that year and a half to build up this following, and it really, I mean, they came out in droves when we were, ready to go.
Got it. Wow, that's awesome. And that really kind of reiterates the value of the consistency,
Yes.
Of just doing something consistently. A lot of times I'm hearing that people are starting to blog or starting to reach out, and really audit yourself, right? Auditing yourself and
Yes.
getting clear, oh wow, I think I'm posting and I think I'm communicating, but I'm only doing it once every couple of weeks.
Yeah, that's
and
not
I'm not really
right.
So how often were you guys putting out some form of content?
We were blogging 3 times a week, and there were 2 of us, so that made it easier. I would say blog and send an email to your list at least once a week, no less than once a week. And we were, posting on social media multiple times a day and consistently for a year and a half. That is what it takes to cut through the noise and to build that audience.
Right. Because you're just like you said, is that you're putting stuff out. You're not necessarily expecting you're going to get traction right away. You're just grinding and doing it. It's a long game. So part of this is just kind of understanding that to be in this business, you're playing a long game.
Yes.
There's no short-term wins without putting in the work.
Absolutely. And I think that is just not emphasized enough. There's no such thing as overnight success. The people you see that have had overnight success have been putting in years of behind the scenes work. And especially in the fashion industry, when there is so much competition and you do have to find a way to cut through the noise, it takes, consistency more than anything.
Yeah, that's huge. And another big takeaway for me was the communicating when you fail. It's so interesting because, we have this culture of Instagram and everybody posting just the best thing.
Highlights. Mm-hmm.
The highlights. But, I think you really are struck on something in opening up to everything, which includes the downtimes. And that's why documenting is such a good way to put it.
Yeah.
Because when you document, you're just capturing what's happening in real life. That it is what it is, Right. And I think that's something that everyone could take away from this. And I can too. I mean, even with us. So for me, Indie Source was created in a similar respect to help these fashion designers that they have the creativity and they're committed. They just don't have the technical background to do it, right? They don't have the pattern making skills, the sample making skills. They don't know where to find the fabric. And so we built a team to solve that problem. But my goal is not yet fulfilled. I mean, I'm a long ways to go because I need to make sure that the brands that go through our program and end up with good product are selling.
Yes.
Because if they're just stuck with it, then that doesn't matter. So I'm insanely committed to figuring out and documenting my process, even with conversations like you, so that I can help them understand what they need to do to raise money, to sell product at the right margins, to reinvest that money, right? And to start to scale their businesses. And I think that's such a great initial thing of just showcasing your failures and documenting and not even being scared about what other people think and just opening that up. It's an amazing, amazing piece of advice. And I would love to see the people in, the Facebook group, if you're joining, or anybody that's on either of our platforms, to send us and show us more of what you're doing. Just put it out there more. Because here's the thing, even on the Facebook group, it's really interesting. When we call people out specifically, right? Or when new people join, we always say, all right, hey, introduce yourselves. And there's all these comments. I'm working on this, da, 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 da. But I'm not getting a whole lot of people that are just by their own admission, just saying hey, da, 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 this is what I'm doing. This is what happened, right? It's very I'm asking. Yeah. So I think it's interesting to flip that role and be I'm okay to promote my business. And this is another thing. I had a meeting with a brand new designer yesterday, and she came in and she was I'm not really good with social media, and I'm a little nervous about, I just don't like promoting my stuff too much, right? And I'm no, you have to get out of your head. This isn't your personal life. You're not posting pictures of your cats, right? You're posting your business. Do you have any advice for getting over that fear of starting to document?
Yeah. I mean, I write about this a lot. If anyone goes to my blog after this, it's factory45.co/blog. But this is the fear, the vulnerability, is something that I talk a lot about, because I think it is the number one thing that holds us back. And really, like you said, you have to separate your personal from your business. You're not promoting yourself. You may be the face or the voice of the brand, but this isn't about you. This is about your customer. This is about what value your product can provide to your customer. And you can have the best product in the world, but if nobody knows about it, it doesn't matter. And so you just have to constantly be saying that if nobody knows about this, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter that it fits really great, or it's made of the most beautiful fabric, or it's so high quality, or ethically made in the US. It doesn't matter if nobody knows about it.
Right. And the other thing that I'm bringing this back because I can't focus enough on this documentation part, because what they'll do, I think problematically, is they will start to pitch their stuff. Like the only time you see them is when they're like, hey, buy my stuff, or ethically made, or da 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 da. But they don't see like the in between. And that's where you get close to somebody. That's where you start to feel and empathize with their whole struggle. And that's beautiful, But when it becomes an advertisement rather than like a documentation, a journey, that's where I think it becomes a little bit like, it feels weird, right?
Right. And that's why it's so important to document up into the sale. Because if you don't say anything, if you haven't documented at all, and then you say, oh, we're ready, open, buy this, no one's going to care, because they haven't connected to you, like you said.
Got it. That's really great. Okay. So, let's see. The program that you created, so you launched the Kickstarter, it was successful. So did you keep going with your product, or did you realize like this is kind of your calling and you like have moved into this thing?
Yeah. So at the end of our Kickstarter campaign, we had complete entrepreneurial burnout. And it was really like in our partnership, but also we were kind of like not expecting it to go as well as it did, which is funny. We were like, okay, this will be like a fun first project, but we're not going to do this forever. So what happened was I sold my portion of the company to my co-founder. And then I moved on to more of a consulting role, putting my feelers out there of like what is really needed in this space. And then launched Factory 45 in 2014. Got it.
Okay. And so the types of people that have come to you from all over the place, all different backgrounds, they don't need to be a certain niche or anything like that. Is that right?
So I am focused on sustainable and ethical fashion, and that would be as much of the niche as I would describe. We take products from, all soft sewn consumer goods products.
Okay. And maybe for anyone that isn't familiar, could you kind of like define sustainable and what that would look like in reality?
Yeah. So my philosophy is progress, not perfection. There's no such thing as perfectly sustainable when it comes to fashion. But even if you know nothing about sustainability, coming through the Factory 45 program, I walk you through what that means. It can be the fabrics you use. It could be the end life of the product. It could be your manufacturing. It could be, a whole slew of things. But again, it's sort of about, making sure that you're doing as little harm to the planet and the people in it as possible without sacrificing your product.
Got it. Awesome. And I think everybody can get behind that. I think sometimes people are a little bit scared because they're unsure and they think maybe it'll be too expensive, but
it's about doing the little things that you can.
Exactly. Doing what you can. That's really, really great. And we're inherently sustainable by making product here instead of, in China. Yeah. So that's a big piece of it.
Totally.
So if you could walk us through briefly, like the stages of the program. So they get started and they join, and what are the first few things that they'll be doing with you once they join?
So basically the program is entirely online. You can be from anywhere in the world to come through it. We start with sourcing, which I know you're very familiar with, and probably everyone watching is. Sourcing is the thing that always takes the longest. Fabric materials, You want to get as many swatches in the door. You want to make sure that you are really taking the time to research your fabrics and test them. The second module is branding. So we should sort of shift gears to talk about, who your target customer is, how to attract them, and we talk about how to engage with them, sort of all the things we've already, been touching on here. The module 3 is pre-production, so setting you up with a sample maker, pattern maker, production partner. Module 4 is e-commerce selling and marketing, so how to sell online direct to consumer. And then module 5 is preparing to launch, which means raising money through pre-sales or crowdfunding campaign, which I think we're going to talk a little bit more about on this call.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, cool. So one of the things I looked up on your site, the modules, and so brand strategy and e-com marketing stood out to me as some really interesting ones. And you say implementation of the number one most effective marketing tactic for an e-commerce product launch. I'm very curious about that. Can you tell us what you're talking about?
I cannot. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. Top secret. No, the most, and I could do an entire 2-hour webinar just on this. And there's, a huge portion of Factory 45 dedicated to this marketing tactic. And it is collecting emails and marketing to your email list. I don't care if you have 100,000 followers on Instagram and you have two people opted into your list, your money is in your list. That is where you are going to be able to sell your product. And so we focus a lot on how to get people to join your list and how to sell to them and how to create loyal customers through that. Got it.
Because you're saying is the list over social media allows a direct channel of communication?
Of course. Yeah. Exactly. It's, you have control over your email list. You don't have control over Instagram or Facebook or Twitter. Those are someone else's platforms. So when you're building your audience on those things, tomorrow they could decide that you're going to have to pay $50, for people to see your post, whereas your email is your direct line of communication.
Right. That's a really good point. Somebody actually even mentioned on here in the Q&A section, I've spent a bunch of money on ads, right? And I don't have the conversions.
Yeah.
What do you say to somebody that's kind of like, they're really trying to get into that game? Like they're doing a lot of social media, but having trouble with the email portion. How do they kind of like make that switch towards, moving the social media conversation and gathering emails?
So you have to have a social media conversation to gather emails. That's kind of your avenue to growing your list. It definitely helps to just, I would say a few times a week, have a call to action to opt into your list. And I don't know what this person was specifically advertising for, like for followers or for opt-ins, but it always helps to have a free incentive. So especially in the beginning, if you're already selling, it could be something like free shipping or 10% off or, some sort of direct freebie. When you don't have a product to sell yet, you have to be a little bit more creative, but having a style guide that you can download or a checklist of, something that relates to your brand and something that provides value to your ideal target customer.
Got it. Okay. Yeah, that's a good point. Because I think in the beginning, you're just like unsure what to ask for.
Yeah.
Interesting. So while we're on the topic of marketing, what are some marketing strategies that you find a lot of entrepreneurs are spending a lot of time on, but are not really effective?
It's, I don't know, because I think it could be effective. It's just maybe that they're not doing the things to make it effective. So I wouldn't say like, oh, Facebook's not effective anymore. I would say maybe if you're not seeing results, you're not being effective in what you're doing. And to your point, like that, this isn't an overnight, like, oh, the first thing I try is going to work. You have to tweak, you have to test. That's where Google Analytics should be your best friend. You need to see, are people opting in for this freebie? Nope. Okay, well, let's try something different.
Right. That's good. And one thing that comes up to me, which is a lot of just looking but not engaging, not talking to people.
Yeah.
Because it is very easy to be like, oh yeah, I was doing social media for 2 hours. Well, how much of that was you just absorbing rather than communicating and engaging?
Yes. Oh my gosh.
Right?
The thumb scroll, that is not doing social media.
You're not doing social media. Yeah. So like an important distinction, guys, like scrolling and being on the platform does not mean you are engaging and building a community. It requires communication with the people on the other side, right? And
Yes.
so no matter what, it just comes back to, don't forget, you're just dealing with people. So the same thing as if they were in a room with you, if you just sat there just watching them,
Right.
right, it would probably be kind of awkward. But, you know, at some point you have to engage. Otherwise, you're not going to make a friend.
Right.
It's just like that, right? People,
Right.
It's so funny because people just don't make like, it's just like the regular obvious connection.
Yes.
But when we're talking social media, for some reason, like it's just like not the same.
Yeah. Well, and I want to also add, like, it's not, again, like, it's not about you. Like, don't make this like, check out what I'm doing. Show interest in that person, you know, like instead of commenting on I'll use Instagram again, but instead of commenting on their Instagram and saying, hey, come check out what I'm doing, say, oh, I really love what you're doing, you know, and maybe provide a free, like a resource that, you know, that would be helpful to them, or just engage in a conversation like a normal person, not like, you know, a sleazy salesman.
Right. Awesome. So, and then the one other thing that stood out to me, which I think is important at the end that you wrote on the production side, which is an exit plan for going into production without headache, hassle, stress of not knowing what to do next. So what's your philosophy on that?
My philosophy on not having the headache and hassle?
On going into production the right way. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So like, is there anything that you teach them within obviously this is my world too. And so like the collaboration between me and the people running the campaign is important. How do you teach them, or what advice do you give them so that they can make sure they're aligned with the manufacturing?
Yeah. So everything is about the preparation and being organized and being in constant communication. I think when issues come up in production, it's because there's been a breakdown in communication. And that starts in the very beginning. You know, it's not just like, oh, I'm working with this production partner or this factory. Like, no, I'm building a relationship with this production partner in this factory. And I'm in constant communication with them so that I'm helping them be successful so that I'll be successful. And you know, this industry is so based on those relationships. And I say, whatever you can do to either be in person or at least, you know, go to your factory when production starts. All of that is just so vital to the end product. Right.
Really having that prep time. I agree. And the one thing that I will say that I do for anybody we have a lot of people launching Kickstarters, and I really try to take them as far as humanly possible from a manufacturing standpoint to where, yes, they don't know their order yet. They don't know the actual numbers, but we've already done grading even, you know, we have the width of the fabric, like we've made markers, and we're past samples. Samples have been approved, and we've even made markers, and like we have everything set up. So no matter the quantity, we're good to go, and we're rolling right away. And what happens is the folks that have issues is, I also have a lot of people that have come to me and said, oh, I just did a Kickstarter campaign. I need to change this. They're like still in sample development, right? And I'm like, oh gosh, no, that's bad, right? You need to finish the product and then launch your campaign. And probably in a lot of cases, they finish the product and then have a ramping period before the campaign's even launched. So let's talk about that a little bit. Like, how far in advance from launching the Kickstarter do they need to start working and like prepping?
Oh, well, I mean, my program's 6 months. So you know, I would say 4 to 6 months is, you know, some people, it also depends. Like, are you doing this full time? Do you have a full-time job and you're also doing this on the side? Do you have a family? But I would say, you need at least 4 months to really and that's at the minimum, to get everything ramped up.
Got it. Okay. And like after because you have the product and you're promoting it, but then you need time to really and is that mostly more of what we've been talking about, which is community building and sending out? I mean, you have to build, obviously, you're doing Kickstarter, you have to build all of the different tiers, right? And the awards. And
well, I mean, yeah, that's just the product side. Then you simultaneously, you need to be building, like you're saying, the marketing side, the audience, all of that. So it's, there's a lot of things to juggle. But it's entrepreneurship.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Do you have any advice for, if there's folks that are just doing this by themselves, do you recommend that they, like put together a team around them to kind of work on different things? Or is there a good structure towards doing this? Because, these entrepreneurs, they have friends and they have other people that can get involved, and some of them do have some budget. So I'm wondering, like, does it make sense to spend money right before? If so, how much? And if not, if you don't have any budget, what team could you assemble around you to try to make that more successful?
Yeah, so it definitely depends on the budget. That's really, going to determine it. If you have no budget, then it's sort of like barter with friends, like for free product or for whatever you can, provide to them. If you do have a budget and it's, a small budget, I would say the most valuable thing you can put your money into is your campaign video, your Kickstarter video, and your photography. Because I always see, you can go to Kickstarter right now and you'll see campaigns up there, and the photography, if there's not good product photography, you're not going to be able to sell. So those are the two things that I would focus on.
Right. It just doesn't resonate with the viewers if they're seeing like kind of just bad quality stuff.
Yeah. I mean, if in like even something that's, $25, you still want it to like look good and to be excited about it. Right. Yeah, if you have a bigger budget than that, I would say, bring on someone who can help you with marketing, social media marketing, content marketing, because you'll always feel like you could be doing more when it comes to the marketing stuff.
Right. And I want to bring up a really important distinction that I had heard you say once, which is Kickstarter is not a charity.
No.
Right. You are selling product to these people that are getting in early. Right. Yes. Can you kind of explain that so people understand that? It's really, really a good distinction.
Yes. So this is the thing, I think, for like until I'm 85 years old, I'll be saying this over and over and over again, because it's, for some reason, it's hard for people to understand this is Kickstarter or crowdfunding, whatever. If it's Indiegogo, Kickstarter, I Fund Women, there are all, a bunch of them out there.
Right.
It's not donation when it comes to a fashion project. You are essentially pre-selling your product so that your customers are financing your production run for you. You're getting that money up front in the bank. You have orders already, and then you're going into production. And the number one objection to that is, well, people aren't going to buy something if they can't see it, or if they're going to have to wait months to get it. And now in this industry, they are. You see big brands even doing pre-sale campaigns. So with with just this online world, people, the trust is there and it works.
Yeah. And they know what they're getting into. Like they're on those sites. They're on those sites and they're looking for something that other people don't have. Right. So there's a exclusivity about it. Right. And that's the thing that you are trading in a sense, right? You're trading time for early access, which is really cool, and so
and maybe a lower price point.
Right, exactly. And you're getting different deals and you get to be a part of something. So the more you hone in on the motion of that, the better, because people want exclusivity, right? Why is Supreme and some of these other brands, like, they sell out, right? Because it's just, there's scarcity. And there's going to be scarcity in the beginning because you have a limited amount that you can offer people. So that's another thing. And so when you can leverage that whole thing and get people excited about being the early adopters of your product, then you have a massive, massive opportunity. But you have to use that. Like, don't forget to use that as a talking point and as a selling point, because that's something I think a lot of people just overlook. Which is really, really great. Awesome. Okay. Is there anything else about the actual launch that is really important for them to know? I mean, obviously, I think a lot of them should just be joining your program, which it seems like the 6 months kind of like leads right into it, right? So then they're like, they hit month 5, 6, and they're just like, smack, boom, I'm ready to go. And they've built that up. But just, is there anything else you could tell us about really, really key things when finishing up your launch that are important?
So like after your campaign has been funded or right before you're about to click the launch button?
I would say no. So you're going, and so like as you're going, right? Is there anything that you have them do while the fund is going and you're trying to raise money?
Oh, I have everything. I mean, not everything. There's a huge amount of preparation that goes into launching your Kickstarter or pre-sales campaign, but it's a marathon, not a sprint. So there's a set amount of time that you can run your campaign. The recommendation is 30 days. And during that time, it's like you're campaigning for like governor or something. Like you were campaigning there. They call it a Kickstarter campaign for a reason. So it's constant, using your marketing platforms that you've already built up. So whether that's your email list, hopefully most important, and your social media platforms, as well as you can host live events. You can do trunk shows or pop-ups during that campaign period, but it's all about getting people to know about your idea, and if it's something that could provide value to them, getting them to pre-purchase it. Right, I'm not even going to say back your campaign, just pre-purchase it.
Pre-purchase, right? Yeah. Exactly. Yeah, that's a really good point. The semantics really matter.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay, that's so great. And it's cool to see a lot of transition in this industry recently, with just so many smaller brands and the direct consumer model that's really starting to flush out, and you're seeing like the bigger retails kind of collapse, and you're seeing a lot of brands that started online are growing really, really fast. Some are doing well and some are kind of like growing too fast, which is interesting. What do you think where do you see this going? I mean, I just love your insight as somebody who is working with so many brands that I imagine are for the most part, they're all just going direct to consumer. So where do you see this continuing, where it's just going to continue to be brand direct to consumer? Are there going to be changes? Like what's physical that will change, and what can they do to start to plan and be different?
That's a loaded question. I think while I have most brands that are direct to consumer, I do have some that are in stores. And I do think there's an omni-channel approach. Like it can't just be it can be just direct to consumer, but I think it's important to look at the different avenues. Can you sell on an online marketplace that someone else has set up? There used to be like Zadie, where they had a bunch of different sustainable fashion brands that they sold. There's wholesale accounts. I have one entrepreneur who did a pre-sales campaign. She didn't launch through crowdfunding. She just pre-sold to her email list and her social media following. And she was direct to consumer for maybe the first few months. And then she started getting her product into stores, and she's in, she's selling at the Four Seasons in Hawaii. Like she has her organic cotton beach blankets in there.
Got it.
So I think that you have to look at all different avenues and not be afraid to try new things, because I don't know, I can't predict the future, because if there's anything for sure, like this fashion industry is changing quicker than we can all predict.
Yeah, it really is. It really is. And I just love the fact that it's just now opened up to anybody that's serious about it can join. And it's not so exclusive anymore. That's the best
thing. Yeah, that's a really good point. There was a few years ago, Fashionista put out an article about how you basically, to launch a fashion brand, you needed like $1 million or something absurd, and like a celebrity endorsement. And I really pushed back on that. That's not how it is anymore. The barrier to entry is so much lower, and anyone can, start a fashion brand from their home office.
Right. So is the goal for Factory 45, are you hoping to continue to allow more and more people to come in to be a part of it? Because it seems like there's a lot more need than ever before.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, it is an application process, so it's not just like a free for all. I want to make sure that, people are applying who I can serve, that I have the resources and skill set, to help them, and that, they're the right fit for the community. But, I'll be doing this for as long as people need it.
Yeah, that's great. I'm glad we have very aligned.
I was going to say you too. Yeah.
Yeah, me too. Do you have any advice for me in my path towards, in my documentation journey towards trying to help these fashion brands or designers or anything like that?
Oh, advice for you.
Yeah. Because it's interesting, right? So we're a manufacturer, right?
Yeah.
But I just, the old model of manufacturing, it's just so archaic.
Yeah.
And so one of the things that I want to do is I want to open up the transparency behind what's going on, you know?
Yes.
Like
Yes.
when I got into this industry, it was like dark alleyways in LA and like,
Yeah.
you know, some big factory owners like, give me 1,000 units or give me 1,000 unit order and I'll make you a sample.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
It's like,
Mhm.
wait, what? I don't even have anything yet.
Yeah.
So we've come a long way from there. But that's like the mentality is like getting away from that old school, you know, have to throw in so much money before you even make anything
Right.
type of mentality.
Yeah. Well, I mean, this isn't advice, but it's more just like kudos to, you know, modernizing the industry a bit, because you're right. Like manufacturers, suppliers, they don't have fancy websites or even like websites at all, or email addresses that they respond to. Like it has been an archaic industry. And, you know, I don't want to get into the politics of it, but like when everything went overseas in the 90s, they lost, you know, so much of their work, the work that was coming, and the workforce was just left without jobs. And so
Right.
I think, you know, it's been hard times, but we're seeing an up and up. And I think it's great that, you know, they're agencies like Indie Source. What do you call it? Do you call yourself an agency?
No, we're a manufacturer because
Yeah.
we actually make this stuff.
Right,
so
right.
we're a manufacturer and consultancy.
But
so
having
we're
that
like
component,
we're an agency and manufacturer in one, because our sales team and our project managers, they're like education first, you know, like they're constantly educating, holding hand. Meanwhile, they actually know all the technical stuff too.
Yeah.
So that's like kind of like the idea is just opening that up. Awesome. Thank you, Shannon. I'm going to go into some questions right now because we have a few to go through before time is up.
Yeah.
I'm actually going to hit the one that we got on our email first, which I think is a really interesting one, about protecting your ideas. Somebody asked, we're concerned about people stealing or copying our ideas. We want to launch, but we're worried that somebody will take our ideas. Yeah. What do you have to say to that?
So in addition to the fear piece, the copycat thing is something that I write about on my blog a lot. Like I have, I think 3 articles in the past, you know, few months just on that, because people are very scared that their idea is going to be stolen. And my advice to that is get over it. Like you can't, this is the industry. You can't be afraid to put your idea out there, because chances are you don't have the money and shouldn't invest in a patent. You know, so putting your idea out there is the most important thing. And the chance that your idea is going to be stolen, like yes, it's a risk, but it's not worth just keeping it tight and then having a bad launch because you didn't put your idea out there before. So that's my advice.
Absolutely. Execution is everything. That's it. Like the ideas.
An idea is not worth nothing.
It doesn't matter. It just really doesn't matter. And I get a lot of people sending me NDAs for stuff that like I've already seen everywhere, you know? So it just, again, that's another thing. I love that. It's another encapsulated component of fear, which is like, what are you telling yourself right now that's preventing you from doing what you know you need to do, right? So worrying about other people stealing your ideas is one of them, and not getting started, it's just not worth it. So that's a really good advice. Yeah. Really good advice. At what point in development do you get on Kickstarter sites? Okay, so we talked about that. You want to be done with development well before you're doing that. This is kind of interesting. So you don't have any metrics of how much of a community or audience you should have built up before launch. Get what I'm saying? Like, does the email list have any connection numerically to the size that you're trying to raise or anything like that?
I get asked this a lot. I would not focus on numbers. Like I wouldn't focus on how many subscribers you have or how many followers you have. I would focus on your engagement. Do you have an open rate for your emails that's over 50%? do you have an engagement rate on Instagram that's over 3%? I would much rather see engagement than I would, a 10,000 person email list, but you only have 100 people actually opening it.
Right. That's good. Very good point. So Dan asked, what financial threshold do you recommend to set as a baseline for starting a Kickstarter campaign?
So in terms of like how much money, so I would say you need probably, the only thing you need to pay for, and you don't even have to pay for it, but I recommend it, is the video and the photography. And I would pay a professional to do that. So let's say that is anywhere from, you could get a friend to do it for free to like, let's say $1,000. And then you need your samples so that you can photograph them and have them ready. And that again ranges from, 200 for one sample to 5,000 for a whole line, depending on who you
Right.
Hard
So
to
then in terms of the actual, what you're asking for the funding is supposed to be just for production, right? Or can it be for other things too?
You can add on a buffer to your goal amount to pay yourself back for what you've invested. But
in product development.
But I would really strongly encourage you to keep your goal tight so that you're really just putting that money to production. Got it.
Somebody asked where you're based out of. You're out of Boston, right?
Boston.
Okay. Shannon's in Boston. I'm in LA.
But in the program Factory 45 is online, so there's no Boston component to it.
Got it. Okay. Just online. Yeah. A lot of these questions have been answered. Someone says I can sell on eBay.
Sure.
That's true.
There's one in the chat. It says, you mentioned that you do social media posting and content marketing 3 times a day. That seems like a lot. What do you post about? It's really not a lot. And I actually said blogging 3 times a week and then social media a few times a day. When you're, and that's like you don't have to do 3 times on Instagram or 3 times on Facebook. That's across sort of whatever platforms you're using. But I would much rather see you consistently use one platform and create really great content for it than try to do all the things really badly, like have Pinterest and Snapchat and Facebook and Twitter and YouTube and, focus on the things that are manageable to you and stay consistent. And whether that's 1 post a day or, 1 email to your list a week or 1 blog post a week, that's better to do that consistently than to not do anything at all or do it haphazardly.
Yeah, that's a great advice because you can get spread out a little thin, right? And so,
especially when it's just you and you don't have a team. I've been there.
Yeah. That's great. Awesome. Well, thank you. We're just about out of time. Where can people find you, Shannon?
You can find me at factory45.co, or you can find me on Instagram at factory45co.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Shannon. This was so helpful for me. I know everybody here got a lot of value. I have a ton of people continue to ask lots of different things, but I think we got to the root of it. And I think for anybody that's in that phase where they're stuck, they've done the research, they're now kind of ready to make it happen, go check out Shannon's company, join, go through the process. She'll dish you back to me if you want to work with IndieSource and to make your stuff. But I really think it's valuable to have a mentor and a coach like Shannon, because you need somebody to kind of like stay on your butt and to give you the infrastructure to be successful. So that's kind of what I've taken out from this conversation, is that you're providing some real infrastructure for them to take very, very smart steps to launch the line, to build the brand, build community, and then to not have so much stress around it because you've already done it, right? I mean, that's like kind of makes it easy that way, right?
Yeah, easier. I'll say it's never easy, but easier.
Easier. Oh, and then somebody asked real quick, when does the program start?
It starts on Monday, June 4th. So that's when it starts. Applications are open or applications close a week from today. So they close on Wednesday, May 30th.
Okay, May 30th. All right, so get in right now. Submit your application and let her know that you're serious. Thank you, Shannon.
Thank you, Zach.
Chatting with you. I appreciate your time.
It was fun.
I will see you guys later. This is Zach with Indie Source, and thanks for watching, guys. Bye.